Hello, students, and welcome to another riveting episode of Coach Stroud's What to Read While Quarantined. In this episode, episode 10, it's a Q&A episode. I asked students to send me messages with questions that they had for me about anything. It could be life, books, interest, anything. And I got a good amount of questions in. So one of the first questions that I got in actually is, what books did I like to read as a kid, or what my favorite book series as a kid was? Well, I talked briefly about it in the video tours, just, kind of briefly, and a little bit in some other book showings that I did. But my favorite, I was really into like horror novels as a kid, and I still love horror books now. Horror movies are my favorite. I love to be scared. I love to get shocked and creeped out and whatnot. So my favorite author at that time was Christopher Pike. I enjoyed R.L. Stine as well, but I enjoyed R.L. Stine's Fear Street and not his Goosebumps series as much. So in a few other episodes, I talked about Christopher Pike's Whisper of Death. This is by far my favorite book that he ever did. Fantastic story. Go check the previous episodes if you want a rundown of that one. I also talked about Christopher Pike's The Starlight Crystal and how that was a very interesting and surprising book that I greatly enjoyed. But some other ones that I read of his, out of the vast majority of books that I have of his that I really enjoyed, one of them was Christopher Pike's Last Act, and this was kind of a creepy murder mystery. Somebody gets killed while performing a play on stage, and it was a prop gun that somebody put a real bullet into. So when the scene was being acted out on stage, instead of firing a blank, they fired a real bullet. Or did they? I don't know. Actually, I do know. I've read the book many times. It's a very good book. It's a nice little horror murder mystery if that's something that interests you. That's Last Act by Christopher Pike. This one I enjoyed. It's not considered to be one of his best works, which is interesting. It's called Master of Murder. And what I really liked about it is, as a kid, I wanted to be a writer. Or as a teenager, I wanted to be a writer. And I remember telling my 10th grade English teacher that I wanted to grow up to be a writer. And I eventually did. I went off, and joined the military and was a journalist in the Army. And that was great. But one of the things that I liked about this book is the main character is a teenage boy, and he's actually a best-selling author, and nobody knows that he is. He writes under a pen name or a pseudonym, which is awesome. So, and then until in town, some murders start happening that are just like his books. And so it's like, has somebody figured out who he is? And if so, can he stop the next murders from happening? So that's Christopher Pike's Master of Murder. I also really enjoy Christopher Pike's Chain Letter. See, back in my day, kids, students, we had this thing called a mailbox, and people would send letters, and the post office would deliver them to you in this mailbox thingy. I know it doesn't. I mean, the phones and the texting just didn't happen back then. So chain letter was, just exactly how it sounds. Like if you get a chain message in your email, send this to 100 people and be blessed with all these riches. But if you don't, you're gonna die. It's the same kind of deal, but turns out to be true. Ooh. That's Chain Letter by Christopher Pike. But one of his best ones, Christopher Pike's best stories that he ever wrote, was The Midnight Club. And I loved this book here. It's about a group of kids who are in a hospital together. They're in a hospice situation. They're all dying of something. Disease, leukemia, other rarities, and they get together in the middle of the night and they tell each other spooky stories. So that's where the Midnight Club comes in, and it's an interesting read. I don't want to go too far into the description of this one because it's one of his most popular books, but it's kind of like the Starlight Crystal. It's supposed to be scary, but it's not. It ventures into a different genre of literature there. So those are my favorite Christopher Pike books. So some of the favorite books that I had growing up. Some of my favorite R.L. Stine ones, though, was R.L. Stine's The Knife. I enjoyed that one. This was, I think, my first R.L. Stine non-Goosebump book that I read. There was also Halloween Night, which is not a part of his Fear Street series. It was actually a part of the Scholastic, I think, Point Horror, no, just the Scholastic Horror. So Halloween Night, that was a good one, and it had a sequel, Halloween Night 2, Electric Boogaloo. If you're a fan of anything 80s, you might get that reference. But probably his best, R.L. Stine's best, was the Fear Street Saga, which told the story about how Fear Street came about and how the Fear family, actually started off with all these horrible things that happen in their area, and based around that family and how that has cursed this neighborhood and this street, Fear Street, up until today. So there was 3 books in this series, the Fear Street Saga. It was really good. This one's called The Betrayal. It's book number 1. Really good. And one of the actual really neat things I liked about these Fear Street books, with the Fear Street Saga, is at the beginning of each book, it starts with a timeline or a family tree, essentially, of the different Fear characters. So that was really neat. It helps you kind of piece things together, and each book had an even more expanded timeline. So those are the books that I liked to read as a kid, that I very much enjoyed. Somebody sent me a message asking about what did I use for bookmarks. Well, which at first I was like, well, that's kind of an interesting question, because I thought about it and it's like, well, I've got 2 main bookmarks that I use, but then I also use something else that's kind of odd or a little bit weird. So the first one is this bookmark here. It's a Big Bang Theory bookmark, Doctor, Mister. I believe my kids got that for me for Christmas one year. And then this one's my favorite, and my wife got this one for me for, I think, either Christmas or birthday a few years ago, but I use it all the time, and I like big books, and I cannot lie. Yeah. Reference to Sir Mix-a-Lot. But one of the other things I actually use for bookmarks that's kind of weird is receipts. So if I go to a bookstore and I buy a book or something, and it's just maybe 1 book, 2 books, I keep the receipt, and a lot of times I'll end up sticking that in the book and just using that as the bookmark for the time. And a lot of times what I'll find I'll do is that when I'm finished with the book, finished reading it, and I put and shelf the book, a lot of times I leave that receipt in the book. So when I go back to that book years later, months later, whatever it is, and I open it up, I actually have a reference point of when I bought the book and generally when I read it. Because usually when I buy a book, I read it within the next couple of days or weeks. And then I do have a TBR shelf that's kind of growing, and for that means to be read. But generally when I buy books, I read them pretty quickly. So it's kind of a neat little thing. And I'll open a book and dang, I bought this back in 2005. That's cool. I don't know. I think that's cool. I got another message asking, this one came from Mr. Scholl. Now, some of you students might have had Mr. Scholl or know who Mr. Scholl is. Mr. Scholl asked, do you just look at the pictures or do you read the articles too? Really, Mr. Scholl? Really? Of course I read the articles of my soccer journal. As a coach, I read articles all the time in my soccer journal. And of course I look at the pictures too, because how am I supposed to understand what the author of these articles are telling me if I don't look at the pictures? Duh. Mr. Schultz trying to be funny, but I got him beat. Yes, I read lots of soccer journals. Of course, I am a soccer coach, and so I like to stay up to date with my different coaching ideas, tactics, plays, things of that nature, formations, stuff like that. And last, the last question that I'm going to talk about today was asked, how am I keeping myself occupied in this time of social distancing and while we're quarantined? Because this person said it was driving them crazy. And I got to be honest with you. It is absolutely driving me crazy too. I love teaching. Teaching is my passion. I enjoyed my time in the U.S. Army. I enjoyed being a writer and a journalist, and the people I met there were absolutely incredible people. Shout out to my man, Foxy Lady, Fox Killer, and to Smaj Hayden. She's my NCO that I had in the first cab. She was absolutely amazing. Both of those guys are just amazing people. I love my time in the military, but being a teacher has been the best part of my life, aside from, my wife and my kids and stuff. I can't imagine doing any other job. So not being able to teach every day has been very difficult for me. And I think how I'm trying to cope with this is to communicate with you guys as best way as I can via, email, messages, Google Classroom, but more importantly, these videos. These videos are what's keeping me sane. I hope you guys like them. I hope you enjoy them. I love all the comments that people leave. I love the messages you're sending me on Google Classroom. It really makes my heart like warm and I just, I miss you guys so much. I know I say it in every single video, but I really do. I love you guys and I miss you so much. So it's been very difficult. This social distancing has been very rough. But I am trying to keep myself as busy as possible, taking hikes, going for walks every single day with my wife and our dogs, reading my soccer journals, reading other books that I haven't gotten to that I've been too busy to get to. I have right here, this is my, I keep journals on everything. I journal constantly. But this is my short story journal. And what this is basically I write ideas for short stories in here, and I write short stories in here, and it's pretty full. I've got a couple of these around here. So I try to write as well during this time, and also do some research and references. Like right now, the book that I'm researching and referencing the most right now is Pat Contry's The Ultimate Nintendo Guide to the SNES Library from 1991 to 1998. Doing a lot of reference and reading. And here, it's a humongous book, as you can see. It's a great title. So I'm trying to stay as busy as possible, reading, writing, making videos for you guys. Yeah, the social distancing stinks. This is awful. And I really do miss you guys. Hopefully y'all have been enjoying these videos, as I said before. And just know that I care about you a lot. I am missing y'all a lot. If there's anything I can do for y'all, if you want to private message me, that's totally fine. We can set up a Google chat to where we can talk face-to-face the best way we can. Please just let me know, and I will put all of that together for you. So thank you for the questions that were sent in. Thank you to everybody that watches the videos. Thank you for the comments. Thank you to those who have liked and subscribed and all that stuff. And I honestly, I couldn't get through this quarantine without you guys and making these videos for you guys. So thank you so much for allowing me to continue to share my love of literature with you, my students, and anybody else that's also watching. I hope you all have a good weekend, or, well, I guess today's Wednesday, so the weekend's not for a couple more days. But have a good week, have a good weekend whenever you watch this. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye.